Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. If you guys give me a little notification there that you guys can hear me in the chat. Ever since I had that one thing, I'm sort of paranoid about that now. Hey, Mother Clucker, prepper for the ages. We do need the rain. Hello, Melissa. How are you? Library Lizard, how are you? John Poole. Can everybody hear me? Starting to. Awesome. Let everybody get in here. Happy Girl, P, Captain Bart, L Dog, Old Spice, Brad, Wisconsin. Love Wisconsin. Northern Wisconsin's got to be beautiful right now. Like to have a bug out location in northern Wisconsin, nice and peaceful, somewhere north of Rhinelander. Or here's one for the people in Wisconsin or northern Michigan, Pembine. Yeah, if you've ever heard of Pembine, Wisconsin, go ahead and put that down in the chat. Oh, that's my hometown. I live about an hour from there. Awesome. Yeah, that's a good spot. Lots of little lakes, lots of forest. My kind of territory. A little secluded. I don't know if you if you have a massive social life, it's probably not the best place to go, but I absolutely love it. Yeah, it's getting cool here. We have a tree here in town. It's a sugar maple. It's not that even that mature sugar maple. It's probably 50-year-old tree, and it's the first tree in town that starts to turn. And since we had that cold snap like good 2 weeks ago, half that tree now is half bright red and half green. And as soon as that tree starts to turn, fall is on its way here in our town. Patriot Preacher, how are you? Freeze warnings tonight for northern New England. I believe it. We're supposed to have a cool down and some rain, and we need rain. It has been stupid dry around here. In fact, it's so dry they started harvesting beans. The bean plant is running. I think they said they're running 7 to 7 right now, 7 days a week. It's either that or it's 6 to 6. It's either 6 to 6 or 7 to 7. But they bag a lot of beans, a lot of blacks, small reds, and that's a lot of what they grow around here. Hello, Bad Bobber. How are you? Like I said, getting a little started here just a little bit early, give a chance to everybody get in here and make sure that my volume is good and stuff. Couple things that I wanted to cover here with you guys. Saw that coming, 5 days of rain in a row coming. We could probably use it here. The ground to soak it right up. Hello from the tip of the mitt, Randy. Awesome. Bet you she's starting to change up there. If we got some color down here already starting, you guys got to have a pretty decent color up there already. GG Garden, how you doing? I went ahead. I've had a lot of subscribers, especially in the last 6 months, ask me for an Amazon store. There's different things that I mention in my videos, and they'll say, hey, where can I get that or whatever? Or we'll be talking about different items in like conversations in the comments and stuff. And I wanted to do it basically as a convenience for you guys, so you guys can find that stuff if you would like to order it for yourself. And of course, because it's an Amazon store, I set it up as a Modern Refugee storefront. I get a small kickback if you guys would buy anything from that. And I have to sell, they said I have to have 3 certified purchases in 180 days for that to stay active. So that's basically the rules and stuff of that. And from now on, in my description, I will have a link to that store in the description from this point forward. And I will also, if I talk about anything specific that I think that you guys might be interested in, I will put a link for that specific item in the description as well, just so you guys have that as a convenience. I hope you don't think that I'm shilling out too much here. Like I said, I really want to do that to help you guys out. Throw just got a deal on a military cold weather gear on Marketplace. That's awesome. I got a couple of things that I think I'm going to throw on Marketplace here. Library Lizard, Northern Minnesota's got colors right now. Yep, I believe that. Hey there, mother refugee. How are you doing? Dean Mullins, Gmail Canada. Hello from Southwest Ontario. Watched your 5-year-old Apple storage video. Oh yeah, that's good. In fact, we're almost getting to the point where we're going to do that. Our apples are starting to fall, so it's time that we kind of do something with that. My first day off next week, I'm probably going to start picking some stuff. JD Prepping Erie, how are you? I hope everybody is doing well tonight. But yeah, I wanted to mention that about the Amazon store. From now on, I am going to have that in the description for you guys. So if I show you guys something or whatever, you guys will have an opportunity to look at that stuff and maybe get it for yourself if you think it's right for you. Angelica, hi, I'm new. Hi, Angelica, I'm old, and I appreciate you being here. I was going through something here just in the last hour or so here at the house. I was going to show you guys this. This is how I prep, and thought you guys would maybe be interested in this. This box right here, I have a couple of these for a couple of different things. This is my dental box, and you can see in there the stuff that I got in there. And what I do is I keep these stacked up with the rest of my stuff, basically like a pantry, but for non-pantry items. And then when I run across stuff at stores or whatever, I will, if I find toothbrushes on clearance, or if I find toothpaste on clearance, I will buy that clearance stuff, the stuff that's as inexpensive as possible, and I will throw that in these boxes. And I have another one like this that's strictly for vitamins, multivitamins, D vitamins, C vitamins. A, C, and D are very important vitamins to have in your preps because they help build your immune system. Same thing with magnesium and zinc. So a lot of times when people are sick, it's because they have a vitamin deficiency. So I kind of go ahead and I will throw them all in a box like this too. And then stuff like, supplements that are good for certain ailments, like D-mannose is for UTIs. Lysine is good for cold sores. I will have that stuff all in. Apple pectin is another one that has different uses. And that's the stuff that I will keep in that container. But this one here is the dental one. I wanted to show you guys this. Born Gearhead, how are you? Pembine is good. Yeah, Pembine's, I like Pembine. It's pretty neat. Thoreau, supposed to be 3 modular sleeping systems, but was the Plus Bivy. I have that exact same one, Thoreau, and I've had good luck with it. The black bag is good to carry in your vehicle in cold weather, and sometimes I will carry the Gore-Tex Bivy inside a backpack, and then I will put everything inside that Gore-Tex Bivy and roll the top up, and then the Bivy acts basically as a dry bag, and then that works really well for my gear. Let's see, B vitamin complex for the nervous system. Yep, that's a good point there. Thank you for pointing that out. And so this is the kind of stuff that I have in my dental box. Toothpaste, small toothpastes, and this is where you get your dentist involved. Stuff like these that we know we're on clearance for probably $1 or $2. I buy that stuff and I throw them in. But then the dentist has a habit. Every time you go in, they will give you stuff like this. And this is for like sore mouth, for like sores in your mouth or whatever. And it's basically kind of like a peroxide rinse. They give you these, and I will take these and I will flip them in this box as well. Same thing with like small little things of dental floss like this. That all goes in the box. Mouthwash that you get when, relatives are hospitalized that they don't use goes in the dental box. Here's another one that I got on clearance a while back. This kind of stuff, when times get tough or something happens that you don't have a lot of money and you're out of work or something, and you don't have you run out of toothpaste or something, you don't have to worry about it. You can go down and you can grab one of these out of the preps. And then this stuff here, this is stuff that is for like if you lose a filling, and little gauzes. And this is something that I got from the dentist too. a while back. And then another thing that I've gotten from the dentist is small little packets of like for tooth pain. This is basically a small packet of Orgel. Hey, Sunset, how are you? Sunset, I took some of your advice and I started my Amazon store, so you can maybe check that out from now on. So when we talk about stuff, I can actually give you the link for the exact stuff. And then this is something that I've gotten in that you get in things like this. These are basically emergency dental kits, and I try to keep a couple of these around where they have stuff in like this. And what this is this is like an emergency um, temporary cavity filling, and it's the same thing for this here. This is actually dental wax, and it's the same thing. Like if a cavity falls out and you lose it, you press this in till you can get to the dentist. And then of course I got a small little tweezers in there that goes with that. And then this is, I don't know if anybody can read that, but this is a toothache. This is a toothache medication, and my guess is it's probably oil of clove, because oil of clove is used for that kind of stuff. And that all goes in this dental box here. And then of course I've got stuff like this kind of stuff, dental picks, and I think that covers a majority of the stuff that I got in this. And like I said, I don't do anything really out of the ordinary with this box right here. Just when I find stuff on sale, I'll purchase that stuff and I'll throw that in here, and this just sits on a shelf for whenever we need it. And if there would be some long-term emergency, I got a little bit of that stuff on hand where we can, take care of basic dental problems. Gmail Canada, what happens in your mouth directly affects your brain and your heart. That's true. A serious dental infection can go into your heart. And I have had actual doctors tell me that. And the reason I know that is I had a tooth pulled and I got a secondary infection after the fact of that. And I had to go get to the infusion clinic and get a bag of antibiotics every day for 5 days. It was on Easter week back about maybe 10 years ago. I had to go over every day and for like 2 hours, 3 hours, and sit there and get my bag of juice, because they didn't want that infection that I had developed in basically the socket where the tooth was. They didn't want that to go into my bloodstream, because they said that that would infect the sac around your heart and it would be bad news. So that's how that all got taken care of. Sunset, those dental kits saved me. Filling fell out. Dentist 1 week later, I was able to keep it protected. Yeah, and that's to protect from pain. And then Motrin, Mosaic's got in there. Store Motrin for toothaches and antibiotics for dental, and that's very true too. Yeah, because dental pain is kind of the worst. And Sunset's got to remember to donate to your local veteran food pantry. We have a lot of these blessing boxes around here now, both at stores, churches, that kind of stuff, where people will leave food or produce from their garden, where people that need help can just come and kind of help themselves. I've went and I've dropped stuff off there too. When I was cleaning our pantry out, there was some stuff we didn't need anymore. When I had that bowl resection, I couldn't eat corn. I can't eat corn anymore. So what we had here for commercial canned corn, we just kind of boxed all that up and then dropped that off at the blessing box there at the church. Mistress Queen Bee, how are y'all from the great state of Texas? How is Texas doing? Did that second dose of ivermectin yesterday, Thoreau. How did that work out for you? Hello from Michigan. We have got a lot of people from Texas up here lately. Texas, there's a lot of people up here that are working. And there's another thing that I wanted to mention, and kind of about sort of economic indicators. And I don't know if I've ever mentioned this in any of my other videos, but the economy around here, I feel, is slowing down. I know, because I talk to a lot of people. I know there's going to be a couple of big layoffs coming, and they are actually closing a large Coca-Cola distribution center that is in our area. And the people that I talked to were the truck drivers, and they were pretty upset because they're transferring that business from the Bay City area. And if you know, Michigan, Bay City is sort of at the base of Saginaw Bay and kind of the central part of the lower peninsula of Michigan. And they are transferring that down to Flint. So the drivers now, basically, Flint is a good hour south of Bay City. So anybody that picked up their loads at Bay City to go deliver that stuff, they now have to drive at least another hour, hour and a half more. So if they're going up into northern Michigan, like Houghton Lake, Roscommon, those towns, now that used to be like 2.5 hours maybe for them. Now they added another hour and a half onto that. So now you have 4 hours one way and then 4 hours back on top of unloading and getting your stuff, dropping your load and stuff off there. So you can see that, and there's a lot of like 20, 25-year employees at this place. It's got a couple hundred workers and they're just eliminating it. And then another thing that I have noticed here recently is shipping is speeding up. And shipping has always been one of those things that I have noticed when the economy kind of turns softer, shipping will speed up. You will place orders like we placed an order at work here this week, placed it on Monday. Late Wednesday morning, Wednesday at noon, we had that order already. And that means that the place we ordered the stuff from didn't have anything going on, and they pulled our order, got it packed up, got it to UPS, and UPS got it out to us because they didn't have a lot going on. And the faster shipping is, in my experience, the worse the economy is, or that things are slowing down. So that's something that you can use kind of as a economic indicator, and typically it's regional. But anyway, that's something I wanted to mention to you guys. What else we got here? If you can protect it right away, new food can get in. Clean is the key with the dental. That's true, and that's why that wax and stuff is so important. You can press that in, and you can protect it, and then hopefully not go through all the pain of all of that. Tennessee Bridge, how are you? Ryan, two huge solar farms have been recently installed on Posen farmlands. That sucks. Posen had a ton of potato production. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Randy, but Posen used to be a big potato area, just like what's the one over on the other side between Petoskey and Kalkaska? Mansalona. Mansalona has a lot of potato production too. Coney B, hey everyone, hope you all are doing okay this evening. Canning. Yeah, I wish I could canning. I've just been working. We had a guy off at work, and I have been just working, trying to help out. Lumber's still coming in good. We haven't had any large increases in price with lumber, but that is something that we still kind of look forward that's going to happen. The big thing that I got told with lumber is, especially plywood and OSB board, the adhesive that they use from that is coming from places that have had a lot of tariffs go on them. So that is the one thing that might affect lumber prices going on this year. Farm sold to a solar farm. Yeah, there's another solar farm that's not too far from here that's been around for a while. They clear cut an orchard. When I seen that, I was ornery in hell when I seen that, because they had a big orchard there. They pressed cider. You could go over there. You could buy apples. They had all the fall stuff, apple pies and donuts and all that other stuff. And they literally clear cut it. They clear cut the whole apple orchard to put up, I don't know, maybe 2/10 of a mile worth of solar panels. And to me, that apple orchard was worth a hell of a lot more than those solar panels, because, all that energy, like we're surrounded by windmills around here. We don't get any of the energy from those windmills. I talked to the people that work for those companies, and all that electricity goes down south and out east, especially to like the big cities like Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Cleveland. So all the windmills that are in my backyard, and we actually have to pay a subsidy on our bill. Like, I don't know, it's like a couple dollars or whatever that's kind of folded into our electrical utility bill, that is a subsidy for these wind farms that we don't get any electricity for. So I'm still trying to figure out how that benefits me, because I don't think it really does. But anyway, that's that. Posen is huge for potatoes. That's what I thought. They have a potato festival every year. Potatoes are pretty cheap there. Yeah, I thought that Posen was a big potato producing area in northern Michigan there. Sunset had 50 extra birds after the solar farm gutted the land. Yep. John Poole, son, I'm near you on the golf course. Yeah, isn't that the truth? Bumble Hill, Mr. AMR, where people in the chat last week talking about a lack of birds at their feeders. Yeah, I haven't had a lot of birds. I keep bird seed out most of the time for the birds. I just like watching them. And then I put nuts out for the squirrels and cob corn and stuff on spikes. And sometimes you'll get like blue jays and stuff coming into that. I don't have a lot out. I leave a lot of, I grew a lot of dill this year and I let that dill go to seed and I take what I need off of it and I just leave the rest because the birds will actually eat that dill seed. And I typically will leave any sunflowers that the birds drop and they come up in my garden. I will typically leave them grow too, and then the birds will eat the sunflower seeds out of them. But this year I haven't had them much. Random life stuff, that's crazy. They can scam you and you're paying for it. Emergency broadcast is coming very soon. It's going to be glorious. Yeah, like I said, I've never been able to figure that out, that all those windmills that are around here, the local residents don't get any benefit from that whatsoever. And there's a massive transmission line and there's interfaces. I'm going to say about 25 miles apart. I've never measured it or anything, but there's like interfaces, and those are pretty complicated operations where they upload the energy that's been transferred from those windmills up into that transmission line to the grid. So about every 20 miles, there's this big station, like it's like a substation on steroids where that energy gets up or that electricity gets uploaded into the grid, and then bye-bye, it's down to Philadelphia. And that's kind of the way it goes. I don't understand a lot of the reasons that they're doing stuff. Another thing that's happening here in Michigan, they the state government has taken all of the asphalt that they use to resurface roads and stuff. The government has basically just said you can't sell that to any third party or private contracting agency because now the state all wants it because they're going to do all that to fix the roads or whatever, which this isn't even the time of year when you do that. After November, they can't fix the roads because it's, winter time. But they've done that. They've clamped it down. So then all these projects that are going on where people were working, now they can't get the material that they need. So I'm sure that's affecting people's jobs too. So don't think that the government can't take, whatever it wants, whenever it wants. And this is, not even really an emergency or now picture that happening in a bad situation. Okay, we got a bad situation going down, and the government says, hey, we need all the electricity, or we need all the supplies, or all the fuel, or whatever. Now, doesn't that make sense to go ahead and have some of that stuff on hand so you don't have to lack for anything like that? And I remember, like, my mom's friend, and I did a video on this a while back. My mom's friend had a bad infection during World War II, and she was older than my mom by about 10 or 15 years. She had a terribly bad infection, and the doctor here in town said, I know what I need to cure you, but the only place that has that medicine right now is the Army. The military is the only one that has that medication. I just can't go up to the pharmacy and get that because that's all for the war effort. So he went and pulled some strings on the black market, and he actually got that medication and he gave that to my mom's friend, and it cured her. It cured her, got her back on her feet, and she lived to be 93 years old when she passed away. But don't think that they can't take whatever they want whenever they want. I mean, we just haven't had those instances here. It's basically since World War II here in the United States, but that kind of stuff can happen. And it's happened before, and it can happen again. It happened during World War II, happened during World War I. That's just the way it is. Another story that my grandmother used to tell, it was about tires. Couldn't get tires during World War II either, and my grandfather needed some tires, and he knew some people, and money changed hands, and they got a hold of him, and they said, this local river here, and my grandfather said, well, yeah, I know where that is, and they said that at 2 o'clock in the morning, you need to go a few hundred yards up that river. Your tires will be sitting there on the bank. That's where they left him, and that's where he went and found his tires. That was all black market stuff because you just couldn't go up to the tire store and buy tires during World War II. That was all heavily rationed. And he was a farmer, and farmers actually had an easier time getting stuff because they didn't have the ration demands on them. Of course, they could get fuel and stuff because they were farmers, but where average people couldn't get that stuff. Let's see what's going on here in the chat. Hands-on homestead. Where there is no doctor. Yeah, that's one good book. And then this is the other one that I like, this Field Guide to Wilderness Medicine. This covers literally all kinds of stuff. And of all the books that I have read, if I hold it right here for you, of all the books that I have read when it comes to I don't know what you medical stuff, this is the one that I like the best. The only thing of it is they use a lot of medical terms in this. So then I'll show you real quick here. Dig it out. Because they use so many medical terms in that book, I had to get myself one of these too to translate those medical terms. But these two books together, they're a heck of a combination, and they've helped me out a lot here at home, and I highly recommend those books. If you read a lot, try Hamilton Books, really cheap. I like used bookstores, and we've actually had a couple of used bookstores around here. I hit those all the time. Let's see. I've got a book on herbal antivirals, mother clucker, and antibiotics. I've been buying the herbs. Yeah, a lot of those oils and stuff like oregano oil, tea tree oil. Like I make soap and I add a few drops of tea tree oil. That's basically like an antibacterial soap then, because tea tree oil has and it's not an unpleasant smell when you mix it in with the soap. Tea tree oil can be really strong if it's like not diluted, but it goes into soap good. And then you add a little the other thing that I add into that when because I don't do soap every year because it lasts so long, but with the tea tree oil, I will add a little bit of activated charcoal into it too. And then that's kind of like a double whammy as far as an antiseptic scrub, basically, if that makes sense. I found some gas ration stumps in my grandfather's stuff. That Char Organic can list your foods we can dehydrate for vitamins. Can you list foods we can dehydrate for vitamins? Now, I don't know about the vitamin contents of the dehydrated stuff. The stuff that I dehydrate, onions and peppers. Well, peppers are high in potassium, so that is one thing that I do know. And I would imagine like banana chips would be too. And I know different people that dehydrate bananas, although I don't. And I would think that apples would too, because apples have a certain amount of vitamins, but as far as the amounts of that stuff, I don't know. Most of the dehydrating I do here, I do it just strictly, for convenience. So I can add a handful of this into a soup or a stew, or if I need some onions and I don't, feel like going down in the cellar and grabbing a couple of onions out, I can grab a handful, throw them in some warm water, reconstitute them, and then add them to whatever I'm cooking. Onions, though, have a lot of antibacterial properties as well. There was an old remedy for fever. I'm sure you can look this up online, but there was an old home remedy for fever where they would take a slice of onion. So they would take a large onion, they would take a big slice of it, they would put it on the bottom of your feet, and they would put a sock over top of it. And that was actually a old home remedy for fever back in the day. And like I said, that was a pretty common thing. I'm sure you can probably look that up online, do some research on stuff like that. Peppers have more vitamin C than lemons. Thanks, Mosaic. I appreciate that. I did not know that. Tea tree oil works good on roaches. I did not know that either, Melissa. I appreciate that. I've heard that certain odors repel rodents too. There's certain like moles were always repelled by mothballs, they said. Now I can't remember back if Mom ever tried that or not, but I remember some of the old timers talking about that stuff. My favorite is to dunk apple slices in pineapple juice and put them in the dehydrator. Apple chips. That sounds tasty. Pine needle tea. Yep, pine needle tea is very high in vitamin C. And another thing is sumac berries. But sumac berries has to be cold. You take the sumac berries, you soak them in cold water, and you'll get kind of a reddish brown liquid out of that. You take your berries out of that. That is extremely high in vitamin C, and it actually tastes sort of like lemonade. It has a lemon taste to it. I've made it multiple different times, and it's actually quite good, especially if you can put that over a little ice or whatever and get that good and cold. But that's a cold thing. You don't heat those berries up. The heat destroys the beneficial properties or whatever. But that's something that you steep cold, and uh, those sumac berries are little red fuzzy berries, and they grow kind of like in a bunch, and they actually sit kind of teardrop shape on the top of the sumac trees. Sumac's got a couple of different uses too as well, but that's one of them. And they usually like sandy soil. So if you have like a little sandy ridge somewhere, and I think sumac grows pretty much everywhere, especially in the eastern United States. Uh, TB, yes, my parents put onions in my socks when I was young when I had a high fever. Yeah, like I said, that was a big thing. My grandfather would eat small onions boiled in milk when sick. That one I've never heard of before, but that's interesting. I have a large tree full of hawthorn berries. Yeah, hawthorn berries we don't have around here, so I'm not really sure what you would use that for. What are the two of the things that are around here? Northern prickly ash is the bark of that is a toothache remedy because it numbs the teeth, and then willow bark is basically aspirin. So if you chew willow bark, that you're getting the same active ingredient. What is it, a salicylic acid or something like that? That is what's in the willow bark, and that is there's a couple other plantain or plantain is another plant around here that's highly medicinal, and it literally grows everywhere if you know what you're looking for. And it's, like I said, one of the better um, home remedies that are around here. Justin, missed the live stream. How much knowledge has been dropped? Oh, we've been talking about home remedies. I talked about some economic indicators that I noticed. I've started a Amazon storefront just to help people out. If I talk about something, I'll put links in there so they don't have to search around for what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's pretty much caught everybody up here. Kind of just catching up everybody. Weather and beans they started harvesting around here, so that's kind of the wrap up just off the top of my head. Uh, Hawthorn is for the cardiovascular system. Thoreau, thank you. I did not know that. Something, you can always pick up, and everybody's got, their own little local remedies for stuff. Uh, my father-in-law, my late father-in-law, he told me they would take onions and they would boil those down into like a mash. They would simmer them right down to almost nothing, and they would put them like on a piece of bed sheet, and they would fold that over. They would make a compress of that, and they would put that on the kids' chest to help break up congestion. That was like if you had bad congestion with bronchitis and stuff, that would help bring up. It was basically like a poor man's expectorant, and that was one that my father-in-law told me, that shared with me when he was still alive yet, and that is very similar to some other things that I heard around here. Uh, but yeah, that is some of the. I'm trying to think what other local home remedies did. Cedar is another one. Cedar baths were used. That's Native American. That's Anishinaabe. They would do cedar baths. If somebody was very sick, they would put them in basically warm water that was steeped in cedar, and that was, I don't want to say a cure all, but it was used holistically, I guess the way to put it. Thoreau, we call that a poultice. Yeah, that is yeah, you're right. That is the word. That is the word that is used for that. I should have known that, but you forget stuff sometimes. Mustard plaster in a brown paper sack on the chest. I've heard of mustard plasters, but I can't remember anybody ever talking about using any of them. Another one, my grandmother would take molasses for low blood, what they call low blood back the day that was anemia. And my grandmother was anemic. In fact, when she died at 96, that was actually one of the contributing factors to her death. Her liver just quit making, and bone marrow, I guess, just quit making red blood cells. And she would take, I remember because when I was a kid, my grandmother was already in her 70s, and I remember she kept a jar of molasses. Of course, they produce sugar around here, so molasses was something that was easy to get. And she would take a heaping tablespoon of molasses every day. And she said that was for iron, that would to put iron back into her blood, because she could not take the iron pills that the doctor wanted her to take because they would make her too sick. So she started taking molasses for that, and molasses was something we always had at the house. That was just one of those things. When it was purchased in bulk, just like sugar. I remember my mom going up to the sugar factory, and she would bale. It's what they call bale. She would go in and she'd say, "I want a bale of sugar." She would buy it directly from the factory, and the bale was 5 10-pound bags, so it was 50 pounds, because she used it for canning. Because she would do pickles, she would do stuff like pears and heavy syrup. She would make all kinds of jams and jellies. All that stuff required sugar to one variety or another, and sugar is actually a preserving agent, and sugar was actually used. Uh, for antiseptic purposes too. And I remember my father-in-law talking about that. My father-in-law was quite an educated man when it came to. He was an environmental health director for one of the counties around here for decades, and he had a lot of information when it came to like bacterias and talking about rodents and different insects and different remedies for things. He knew a lot of that stuff because it was kind of that was his business to know that stuff. Molasses can be used to make EM1, which is used for a plant growth enhancer. That's interesting. I've never heard that. Library lizard. I was born in 65 and grew up. It was so rare to go to the doctor. Mom treated you at home with Vicks Vapor Rub. Yeah, and the actual Vicks, that's harder than heck to come by nowadays. You just can't find that. And when you do find it, it's not near as strong. I mean, the old Vicks Vapor Rub, that used to be, I'd take the paint off of the wall, but the stuff that they sell nowadays, that's not quite the same. Thoreau, Vic Sav, onions, horse liniment. Horse liniment, we have a bottle of horse liniment here. I got it at Tractor Supply. And that is something that my mother refugee has used on her back. She's got a lot of back problems. We have thinned that down, and she's used that. And that is actually pretty similar to some of the high end like Icy Hot. I say Icy Hot, but there's other brands that do that, but some of them are quite expensive. And that horse liniment is pretty comparable to some of those higher end things that she has used. Have I done much with air rifles? I've been dabbling. I have not. I actually bought one once that I thought was going to be good, and it turned out to be complete junk. So that was like $100 pissed down the drain, and I never really got back into it since. If I would do it again, I would probably really, really watch it. And when I was a kid, you could get BB guns and pellet guns that were rifled. And the rifled BB guns that I had when I was a kid were extremely accurate. You pumped them the maximum, the 10 pumps. I killed many a red squirrel and stuff with just a plain BB out of those BB guns because they were more accurate kind of than what the stuff is now. Randy, my father used lard and sulfur for a rash once when I was a kid. We had sulfur around the house. Mom would get it from uh, she would get it from the pharmacy, and she would use that to drive out rodents. So if there were like mice in the barn and she wanted to get rid of them, she would take that sulfur out there and she would put it in a like a pie plate, and she would actually take a little bit of rag, put that in there, and she would light that, so that would smolder, that sulfur would smolder, and that blue smoke would fill the whole barn up. And if there would be any rodents or red squirrels or mice or anything, they'd come flying out of there 100 miles an hour. Well, then the cats would get them. And there were different times when Mom did that, when she said, "I seen some mice in the barn, I'm going to go take care of that." But she kept it in a mason jar, kind of in the apothecary area. But yeah, back then you could just get plain sulfur right from the pharmacy. But now nowadays, I don't think they probably look at you funny if you ask for that. I know I wanted peppermint oil for something, and that used to be something that you used to get at the pharmacy too. And I went and asked for peppermint oil that one time, and they looked at me like I had lobsters crawling out of my ears. Cod liver oil every night. Yeah, that cod liver oil is something that I heard. I heard different times them using for stuff too. Rock sauce. That's what the stuff is, Mother Refugee. But rock sauce, that horse liniment is comparable to that rock sauce that Mother Refugee uses on her back. Yeah, blackstrap molasses. Sassafras tea is good for the blood too and energy. And the other one that was the other tea that was used around here a lot was chamomile. Chamomile tea was pretty, and I think that was a German thing anyway, and it was all German immigrants and stuff around here, so that was a commonly used thing was chamomile. That was another thing that were in a lot of the old households. Don't forget the little green bottle of Blue Star ointment. I can't really remember Blue Star ointment, but I remember a bag balm was one, and then Prid. Prid was a drawing salve, but then Mom actually had recipes for Prid to make your own drawing salve, which is basically what black salve is. And I actually have a black salve video. What's basically, oh gosh, what is it? It's plantain, and it's I can't think of it now. It's the marigold flower. They call it, I can't think of it now. Calendula. I think it's calendula, what they call it. And then comfrey was the other one. Those are the ingredients that are in that. And there's different variations of it. And then bentonite clay is the other one. That's kind of an Indian thing. And then you make like a paste out of that, and you add a little bit of oil and beeswax into that, and it makes basically a black drawing salve that's very similar to Prid. Another name for it is Amish drawing salve, because I think the Amish, somebody got a recipe from the Amish once posted online, and then it went all over the place. But there's kind of different variations of that as well. And then another thing too is fermented foods. Fermented foods are really good for you. Things like crock dills, sauerkraut out of the crock, anything that's fermented in the crock, kimchi. My daughter's been making kimchi because she likes Korean food and stuff. She's been making kimchi in mason jars in the refrigerator, and Mother Refugee loves that stuff. And she's been and anything fermented like that. And I do fermented hot sauce, that thing too. Some of that fermented hot sauce on your eggs, boy, that's really good for you, because that bacteria and stuff that's in there. Witch hazel. I remember witch hazel. There was always witch hazel in the pharmacies and in the grocery stores growing up. And all the old men had witch hazel because they used it for aftershave lotion. When they'd shave with a straight razor and stuff done, they would put a little witch hazel on their hands, and that was their aftershave. And I remember that. That was pretty popular. I made it. Snapping beans. Oh yeah, snapping beans. I remember doing that. Snapping beans and shelling beans. One time, Grandma, the farmer missed a section where he turned around the field there, and there was I don't know, several rows of beans, and Grandma sent me out there to pick all them. We sat up till the wee hours of the morning shelling all those beans for those dry beans, because Grandma says we're not letting those go to waste. And that's kind of the thing you learn when you grow up, kind of how we did. My granny mixed sulfur powder with medicated Vaseline to treat ringworm. That's interesting. I've never heard that either. She, good evening. Love this channel. Great advice. Love the canning advice. I appreciate you being here. Scottish Prepper. Good evening, folks. How are you? How's things across the pond? Scotland? My wife would probably love to go to Scotland. Prepper for the ages. Okay, now I'm hungry for sauerkraut. Oh, and the thing about making your own sauerkraut in a crock is you can control the sourness. And that was always the thing. My Mother Refugee hated sauerkraut until I started making it, because I can control how sour it gets. I can control the fermentation process because I'm making it myself. And then when it gets to the point where it's the way she wants it, I can jar that up and put some in the refrigerator. And then, if you leave it in the crock, it just keeps getting sour and sour and sour. But if you stop that fermentation process or slow it down, you can keep that sourness at a milder level, I guess. And I'll tell you what, though, there's nothing bit better than my sauerkraut, especially on a sandwich or something. Put a big old, and the old guys, they would just go down and eat the sauerkraut right out of the crock because that's how good it was. I think Blue Star ointment people used for crabs. Oh, that's actually, that's pretty funny. What am I drinking in there? No cider tonight. This is just regular water for here. But I actually have. I got about maybe 2 gallons of hard cider left from what I made here. I did a video a while back on making hard cider, and that's what I got left in there. Boy, it's crystal clear too. It basically looks like cider vinegar, but it's not. It's a little bit sweet. It doesn't have any sourness to it like the vinegar, but I'm sure that's good for you too, that there's good stuff floating around in that's good for your gut. It's cold and wet, but I'm mostly in Orlando ATM for 2 weeks melting. Really good source on YouTube for home remedies and herbals is Dr. Patrick Jones, homegrown herbalist. I'll have to check him out. My grandpa would drink a shot of whiskey and a spoon of honey for cough. Yeah, and I remember my mom doing that. She would take a little warm water. She would put a little lemon in it, and she would put a little honey in it, and then she would add a shot of Jim Beam. It was always Jim Beam, which she would put into her whiskey toddy or whatever for like congestion and stuff. And I remember, like I said, it was always Jim Beam. I don't know if that was just because that's what they liked or what, but Jim Beam was the one that was always used for that. Cornhuskers lotion, I remember that too, and they still sell that up here too. Goldenrod in my yard. I do not know what to use for goldenrod or what goldenrod is used for because I'm allergic to it. And goldenrod is something that I just kind of stay away from. But I know that there are different people. I've seen different videos and stuff where goldenrod has been used for certain things, but I don't really know what that is used for. So if anybody knows what they use goldenrod for, that'd be great. Pokeberries or for skin disorders. I've heard of pokeberries too, but we don't have those around here. There's elderberries. Elderberries, I don't recall. I know elderberries that's a really powerful medicine too. I don't remember ever seeing elderberries around here. Gooseberries grow around here, currants, wild strawberries, both red and black cap raspberries. Black cap raspberries are extremely popular. Crab apples grow around here. Choke cherries are another one, or wild cherries, very, very sour. Those are some other, what other berries can I think of now off the top of my head? Mulberries. And then there's two different kinds of mulberries. There's the purple mulberries, and then there's also a white mulberry. And the white mulberry is generally, I want to say it tastes more like vanilla. It has a little bit more of a vanilla-y type taste, I would say. Those are some of the main ones that are around here. Mint. You can find wild mint around here if you know what you're looking for. Huckleberries just popping in to say hi. Vicinator. Huckleberries, yeah. We have two different varieties of wild blueberries or huckleberries. There's short bush and then there's tall bush. And actually, south of here in different state game areas and stuff, there are a bunch of tall bush ones, which are basically 6 foot high or higher. And those are great to pick off because you don't have to bend over. But then if you go up along the shoreline, like the shoreline in the sandy, kind of the sandy dunes that have been covered over with like pine needles and stuff. The short bush blueberries grow there because the pine needles are very acidic, and them short bush huckleberries grow there. And then they are very short. The bushes are only like this high, so you're constantly bending down to pick them. But both of them are very, very good. Stephen Ross, appreciate your work. Thank you. First super chat. How much does Google keep versus goes to you? I really appreciate that, Stephen. Like I said, I just do this try to help people out, but I very much appreciate that. I don't know exactly what Google keeps, but I would say it's probably at least 20%. But like I said, I very much appreciate it, Stephen. Like I said, I do this to try to help people out, and I just let everything kind of take care of itself. But all these old things, all these things that we're discussing in these chats here, this is stuff that people need to know. This is stuff that should not be lost because an elder member of the family passes away or whatnot, and I want people to have this common grassroots, salt of the earth knowledge, because this is the knowledge that have gotten people through depression, world war, civil unrest, everything that has happened in the past. That's how the old timers got through this stuff. But I really appreciate it, Stephen. Green blackberries will stop diarrhea. I did not know that either. Prepper liniment. Tea berries and June berries, and we actually have juniper berries. We have juniper berries here in Michigan too, but the juniper tree will not produce a mature berry, I think, until the second year. They'll put on the berry, but it's not mature until the second year, if I remember that correctly. And they look different. You'll be able to tell by looking at it. Amen, amen. MR, like I said, I just speak from the heart. Bramble leaf tea is good for diarrhea as well, but I bet green berries are more potent. Yeah, stomach ailments are the worst. If you get tied up with them stomach ailments, and raw honey is another one that is sort of a stomach. And I actually asked some doctors or nurses once on raw honey why raw honey helps, like what they call the stomach flu or whatever. That's actually a bacteria, and they said that raw honey actually dissolves the cell walls of the bacteria that causes that, allowing your stomach acid to get in and to destroy that bacteria, and that's overflow in your gut or whatever the reason that they use that. So raw honey is another one that's I use for that, and I've also been told that raw honey that has antibiotic properties. It will cure or at least lessen different infections and whatever. But yeah, Stephen, I really appreciate it. I really hope that I'm a value to the preparedness community. Raw honey is one of the oldest antibiotics around. Yeah, I read somewhere once that they even use the raw honey was something that was even used in Egypt, in ancient Egypt. TB, your information and others sharing on this channel is such a blessing. Thank you. God bless. God bless all of you guys as well. And I really appreciate each and every one of you taking an hour out of your week to come and just hang out here with us and discuss all this stuff. Like I said, I ain't nobody important or nobody special. I just try to facilitate and get good knowledge out there. Ginger is good for digestion. We buy ginger candles at Dollar General. I've heard that about ginger and oregano oil. Oregano oil I've been told, has lots of medicinal properties as well. Garlic and oregano are my favorite antibiotic. Yep. Garlic too. I love raw garlic. A couple slices of raw garlic, and I make this what I call Midwest hummus. And Midwest hummus is it's white beans cooked, a couple of bay leaves, but then you puree them up. You add a little olive oil and you add raw garlic into that, and maybe just a little bit of lemon rind. And then you have that as a bean dip. You can put it on, pita chips, or you can put it on little toasted bread squares, or you can have it on tortilla chips, or if you like, make your own tortilla chips, fry your own tortilla chips, have that on that. But that bite of that raw garlic in there, that is just amazingly good. And I'll tell you what, that's a really good side dish to take to if you're playing cards for a night, or you go into friends or whatever, make a little batch of that and take that over there with some tortilla chips or something. You get that raw garlic in there. If people like garlic, they'll absolutely love that stuff. In fact, I think I have a video on that, and I think I call it Midwest hummus in the video. I show you guys how to make that, but it's real simple. Old European flu shot, garlic dipped in salt. Salt is another one, they always tell you. In fact, I was given the doctor crap when one of my kids were sick back in the day, and he come in and he said gargle with all, because they're all against giving medication. Now they make you go to the doctor 3 times before they give you the stuff that they know will cure you. And he said about gargling with salt, and I said, what is this, a civil war? That's the best you can do over here for a $50 office call, is tell you to gargle with salt water. I could stay at home and save my $50. I don't think the doctor liked that very well, but it was the truth. And stuff like that. That's why this knowledge needs to be perpetuated, so people that don't have $50, they can do that stuff at home and not have to spend that money at the doctor's office. Go there for nothing. Real peppermint soft candy will stop burping, type indigestion immediately. Yeah, and I read once that peppermint is a relaxer for your digestive tract to a certain extent. So then if you got like hiccups real bad or anything like that, that peppermint will kind of relax that and allow that to kind of dissipate, if I'm remembering correctly on that. Oh gosh, what other? Another thing. You remember the old Lysol that came in a brown bottle? It looked like a pint whiskey bottle. Does anybody in the chat remember that stuff? That was something that I remember was always at the by the like the detergent and the Fels Nafta soap and stuff when I was like 8 years old, going up to the 5 and dime store. And that was another thing that I remember the old timers doing. They would take some of that, and that was a real dark, stinky brown liquid. It was like it almost smelled like Listerine mouthwash, but even stronger. They would take that Lysol, whatever that disinfectant liquid, and they would put that in a little bit of water on the stove or on the wood stove, and they would just let that Lysol, whatever that was, they would just let that go up into the air. They would let that evaporate up into the air, and they said that would kill the bacteria or the germs and stuff that were in the air. But that's another thing that I remember, and I have looked high and low for that old Lysol in that brown bottle, and I have never ever seen that. What we got here? But yeah, I remember them old bottles of that Lysol, and a lot of the old timers use that stuff. It was a very, very strong, like I said, it had that very, very strong Listerine type smell. Have some Lysol in brown bottles. And what was the other one? That pink soap had the old pink soap that you can get. You can't get it now. I think we have Mosaic's still in here. I've heard that you can still get it in the Caribbean and the Caribbean islands and stuff. What the heck was it? Oh, carbolic acid. It was a pink. It's what made the. I can't think of it. Is it Zote soap? But that was like an antibiotic or antiseptic soap back before all the antiseptic stuff that they have. Now all the soap is this antibacterial on or whatever. But that soap had that red or pinkish look to it, and that was because of carbolic acid. And carbolic acid was an ingredient in that, and that's what made that soap antiseptic. Yes, Granny used Lysol in the bottle in her bathroom. Always smell like it. Yup. Phone's going crazy here. Fels Nafta soap, can't live without it for the laundry. And Fels Nafta soap is good if you have poison ivy. That fells naphtha soap, because that's pretty strong, that will strip the that poison ivy oil, that urusol that gets, and I'm highly allergic to poison ivy. That urusol, that fells naphtha soap will strip those oils off your skin that actually causes the rash and the blistering and stuff in the infection. I've always bought that Lysol at Walmart or the grocery store. You really have to look hard for it on the shelves. Yeah, like I said, I've looked around here and I just can't find it. I wish I could find 2 or 3 bottles of that. Yeah, estate sales, hit the household cleaners first at the estate sales. And I've actually found some pretty good stuff like that, like old tins of Vaseline and stuff that were still in like a tin or an actual glass bottle. That's probably a good place to look for the old school Vicks too. Google Lysol, you should be able to see where it's off your area. I'm going to try that when I get off here, definitely. Fells naphtha is petroleum based and wipes out grease like crazy. Yep. Yeah, that Fells naphtha soap. Like when I always had poison ivy when I was a kid, Mom would always use her homemade lye soap on it. And that homemade lye soap, because she didn't add anything into it other than the lye, the rainwater, and the animal fat, it didn't lather up much. Like I've tweaked my soap recipes over the years, and I put a little bit of coconut fat into it, and that actually lathers it up, because most people nowadays, if the soap doesn't lather, they don't think it's working. So then if you put a little coconut oil in that, you get the lather. But actually, the old lye soaps, they were a lot stronger, and they would take them poison ivy oils off as well. But they didn't lather as much. So just because a soap isn't necessarily lathering doesn't mean that it's not working. My great grandmother thought that you were supposed to take a dose of castor oil or black draft laxative a few times a year, regardless, clean you out. I believe that. I would believe that. Amazon might have Lysol. I'm gonna check that out. I'm gonna check, but then again, too, the stuff that the formulas that they used when I was a kid, they might not even have that stuff anymore. So it's always a kind of a crapshoot and a gambling. Another one was there was a liquid bluing. That was another thing that was used for different things, and it was supposed to be like a detergent or a laundry booster. And that liquid bluing, there was different things that the old timers used that for as well. We can't use coconut here. Daughter is allergic. Yes, that is Karen. There are people that are allergic to coconut, but I think there are other things that can be added into the soap that will cause lathering too. But coconut is just the one that I've always used. Liquid bluing is a whitener. Yeah, like I said, there were different things that they use that for too. Like I said, Mom, she would make about every 2 to 3 years, she would make a big batch of soap, and then that, of course, that old lye soap, the longer that sat, the more it cured. Yeah, there was like a curing period on that. When you make soap, it isn't just ready right away as soon as you're done with it. That has to sit for quite a period of time, so that can actually finish the chemical reaction that actually makes it soap. I don't know if people know that or not, but that is very true. Same formula as Lysol. I buy it every year. Lasts a long time. I'm going to be looking for that. That'll give me something to do later, but I will definitely look for that. Rubbing alcohol for cleaning poison ivy. Fire ant bites. I was never, I don't know. I guess I must not taste good to insects, because I've never had a lot of problems with insect bites. Ticks occasionally, but ticks get into everything, and ticks can be nasty nowadays with all the different stuff that they carry. Ticks are something that you never want to mess around with. If you're out in a tick prone area, as soon as you get back to wherever it is that you're going, you need to take your clothes off and, have somebody check you, make sure that you don't have any ticks, because a tick will, like if you get a tick on your leg, it will run up until it hits a barrier, and where it hits that barrier, that's where it burrows in. Well, fat guys like me, that's like in my waistline, behind your knees, the small of your back. I had one on that mother refugee had to take out of my back. um, I don't know, a few years back. And what had happened, I went bow hunting the night before, and I got up, and when a tick bites you, you will not feel it. They got a really powerful antiseptic that they inject into you before they burrow into you. And what happened is the next day, I felt something on my back, and I had a lump like that on my back where that tick had burrowed in and I never even knew it. And it was right on the small of my back, just above my belt line. He got on there and he ran up until he hit that kind of fat shelf on my belt line there. And that's where he burrowed into me. And I called over the doctor and I said, hey, I got a pretty deep tick because he was all the way in. And Mother Refugee did a good job. She got all of them out, but they actually called me in a prescription for that. There's a couple certain things that they give you for that, just in case that tick was carrying anything. If they get it within the first like 24 hours, they can actually give you something that will stop, like from the Lyme disease or whatever. They can stop those tick-borne illnesses from getting into your bloodstream. So that's another thing I want to just mention now here that I'm thinking of it. I make off-grid living. I make soap with different fats and oils all work together. And all coconut oil soap isn't good for folks with already dry skin. I never add much. I just add a little bit into it, and it's just a very small amount, and then that helps the soap actually lather up, and that's why I use it. You may not have fire ants in Michigan. Grew up in Texas, and the fire ant invasion in the 70s and 80s wiped out all the ticks here in Texas. Well, I guess that's a plus, kind of, but if the fire ants are worse, maybe not. Old Spice, have a great night. Appreciate you being here. Thank you, Mother Refugee, for posting that drawing salve video. I appreciate it. Yeah, I did not know that, Stephen Ross, that I did not know that the fire ants wiped out the ticks. I did not know that. Chiggers, Noxzema for itch and chiggers and other itchy spots. Doxycycline, yeah, that's what they prescribed for me, Bob. See, that's what they gave me for the tick was doxycycline. Noxzema is another thing. I don't see that around a lot anymore, but that used to be the go-to for sunburns. If you had a terrible sunburn when you were a kid, you'd be plastered with white Noxzema all over because that was the only thing that would take away the pain. Coney B, I appreciate you being here. Thanks for stopping in. Appreciate you guys always being here. Well, we've been on here for about an hour. Had a really great chat tonight. I just love discussing this kind of stuff with you guys. And then, of course, I'm sure there's lots of people out there that have not didn't know some of this stuff. So I'm sure we had a great transfer of knowledge here. Karen, how are you doing? Patriot Preacher, I appreciate you being here. John Poole, I appreciate you being here. Cramit Dreams, thank you. I appreciate you being here. Yeah, I next week, this is this is Saturday, so next week we'll do a live chat on Sunday, and we'll try to catch up on everything. I appreciate each and every one of you guys being here. Like I said, I always hope that I am a benefit to the preparedness community. I want this old knowledge to be propagated and continue to be around for generations to come. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Hope you guys always get some information, some entertainment out of my videos, and you guys have a great one. You guys have a safe week as well. Take care now.